And welcoming our next speaker, Alex.
Yo! Got to get my drugs up here. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I was looking at my place over there. I've got like 3 bottles of water, a couple of coats, you know. Anyway, I'm Alex. I'm an alcoholic. And it's good to be here. I was supposed to speak with my wife, Maureen, here, but I spoke with my other wife, Richard. Anything can happen in sobriety. There's, anyway, something I was reading. I always like to do a cheat sheet sometimes before I speak, but I love what it says here. There are all these weird things at the end of the big book, too, which, you know, religious views on AA, how to get in touch with AA, 12 concepts. I didn't even know there were 12 concepts till I was about 14 years sober or something. And then there's this one thing which I really like. You know, we find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are essentials of recovery, but these coming up are indispensable. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Anyway, I'm going to be 25 years sober in about, I don't know, probably about a week or so. I got sober in 1980 in January. I purposely didn't remember the exact day because I was around for a couple of years before, and sorry, I just recognized somebody. I couldn't remember where I knew them from, but anyway, it's weird the people you run into in these meetings. I mean, like even the guy who, my friend here asked us to speak. I think we had worked together sometime. Neither of us can remember where, but we probably had. Sober, we can't remember where. And I got sober in, the reason why I didn't remember the exact day is because the first time I was around, I was counting days, you know, and there was a thing in New York. I got sober in New York. It's a thing about 90 days. And, you know, when you're 90 days sober, you can speak. So I kept hoping something was going to happen at 90 days, you know, and nothing happened in 90 days. You know, yeah, I could speak, but I didn't feel any different. And then I was counting the days more, and I was getting close to a year. And I remember I flipped a coin whether to go out and get high or go to a meeting. And the coin said to go to a meeting. So I flipped it again. You know, and I kept flipping it till, you know, I went out and got high. And it, so when I came back, I mean, first of all, it was hard to come back. You know, it's not just, hey, I think I'll come back. It was, you know, you're reaching your bottom when you're drinking white wine. You know what I mean? I mean, it's the end, you know, it's the end of the fucking road. You know, I couldn't drink white wine for very long. You know, I'd have, you know, hey, I'm just drinking white wine. You know, all of a sudden I'm just like, you know, shooting coke and speed and heroin. But there was, I guess the days didn't really matter that much. The counting of the days didn't matter that much. I know it was somewhere in the first 2 weeks in January. And that was good enough, because there was no place there was no kind of result. There's no place I'm going to get to, you know, like, hey, I turned 20. I had one of the toughest years I've ever had by far. And what is it, like 25 years? Like, I feel like a bigger idiot now than ever. And it's, and it seems that I know less, and it seems that there's more gray. And that's also the good news. It's my sponsor. I don't even call him my sponsor because he's a guy who really, he really saved my life. And it was a lot, and he did the work that a lot more than a sponsor, I think, would do. He said it'll take, when you're able to live in uncertainty. I mean, the natural state is living in uncertainty. And it takes a great deal of maturity to be able to live there. And I find that to be true because whenever I'm certain about something, whenever I know something to be true, usually that's going to be blown out of the water sooner or later. Whatever theory I have, whatever myths I have, whatever belief systems I have are usually ripped apart sooner or later. And that's also the good news because, I don't know, you know, it depends what I guess what the journey is. It's funny, I think I love AA now more than ever. And I've really, and what I love in AA is what I think the reason why this is the only place I've ever trusted is, and the only place that's never lied to me. And it doesn't mean that the people don't. It doesn't mean that the people aren't, hey, alcohol is a symptom of a disease. So you take away the alcohol, you have people that are very, very diseased, including myself in that. And you have, you know, self-righteousness, you have all the fucking weirdness, you know, that comes out. Put it this way, a lot of times I like being with like street drunks in the street and talking to them than sober alcoholics sometimes, you know. There's the journey, it's like, what is, you know, after this amount of time, what is it? You know, what do I really want? A lot of things ended this year for me. There was, first of all, my health. Somebody else who was talking about health. I was ill for about 2 years, and it really changed me. I didn't know it was changing me, but as it happened afterwards, I saw what it had done. I had to slow down. You know, I was a careerist for a long time. You know, I got sober. I didn't have the house or anything. I didn't have, I mean, I basically couldn't say a complete sentence. You know, I was really a very low bottom drunk and a low bottom drug addict. And I really worked, there's so many myths, and a lot of them are myths, you know, that are around in society, whatever, that let me be a worker among workers. Let me be part of the system. Let me really try and do really good. Let me be a good boy. I never went to high school. I never did anything like that. You know, I went to college, got a degree, got a master's degree, worked. And I worked myself to the bone. I remember when my daughter was born, I was talking about that with somebody else, that one of the deepest depressions I went into is when my daughter was born. And that was, you know, there was a word that a friend of mine in the program was telling me, it's not conscience, there's a dissonance, an intellectual dissonance. I forgot what the exact word was, but it's where what you think it's going to be is not what it is. It's a completely different experience. And when my daughter was born, I went through basically my childhood. You know, it's like, holy shit. You know, these are things that I thought I had gone through. And they came back to haunt me big time. And then I started finding out about other men that had kids and went into deep depressions, you know, things that weren't really talked about. So it's the journey, for me, the sober journey, it's like no two sober journeys are the same. We share the same disease. When I come into these rooms, I share a common language. I like coming into rooms because it's one of the few places where I can really relax. Sometimes I get really sleepy. It's because I feel like my defenses go down. Then when you know, just to go through a bit of fatherhood, my daughter's actually going to turn 19. I thought, I didn't think I could actually survive it. I didn't think I could survive, even in sobriety, even going to meetings. I didn't think I could survive the kind of the pain and the stuff I was going through. And I came through it on the other side. I remember holding her in my arms one day, and she remembers because I told her that. She's about 2 years old, and I remember that feeling of falling in love. You know, I looked into her eyes, and I was, all that fear and all that pain, whatever, was lifted at that moment. And so the experience of sobriety is also, it took me through things that I thought would kill me over and over again, things that that I didn't believe that I could actually endure, and I was able to walk through them and come out the other side and be somebody that I didn't know I could actually be. And even the process, just use fatherhood as another thing. I also became, I didn't think I could be a father because I didn't have the right wardrobe. My dad had a great wardrobe, Of course, he was out of his mind, but he had nice clothes. So I don't know why I had that in my mind. I couldn't be the kind of, because I didn't really have a life before I got sober, in the sense that it wasn't a bridge back to life for me. I was like shooting heroin when I was 15. I mean, there was a lot, to me it was a bridge to life, period. And I had to, I would look outside at all these different models. I mean, even when I was telling actually my daughter the other day, when I was shooting heroin at 15, I remember watching the TV and thinking, everyone's a junkie. They just know how to hide it better, Everyone was drinking. If only I could learn how to drink like that person over there. If only I could learn to hide it better. If only I could learn to do, if only I could learn to be a father like that person over there, or maybe I could do my sobriety like that person over there. But it's, my own journey is going to be different. And I became, the father that, I guess I became my own kind of father, which isn't necessarily, I don't like a lot of parents. Actually, I found that I could become the father that I wanted to be when I found out I really didn't want to be like any other parent that I had met. I didn't want to give what they were giving to their kids. And I guess it's maybe I'm talking about her because I dropped her off at school last Thanksgiving. I was up in where she goes to college. She goes to a college which would have never accepted me in a million years. But anyway, it was like, and I felt so sad. It was just like really, it was just sad. It was just that, it was because that part of my life was over, in a way. I feel like I was her father, very present for 18 years, and now it's over. It doesn't mean I'm no longer her father, but there's an ending to it, and from the ending there's a new beginning, whatever that's going to be. I'm separated. I've been married 22 years, and we had a very difficult year, partially because I don't want to get into the details of it into too many details of it, but it's funny because everyone would say always, they thought I was like the ideal, whatever, AA couple or something like that, and I say, hey, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You know what I mean? There's the, marriage is like, it's tough. Marriage is a fucking journey, and I never expected to be married. For one, and it's always been a day at a time for me. It's never an unconditional relationship, but I'm always shocked that I was married so long, like 22 years. It's like, I'm still getting over that I'm not 22 years old kind of thing. And it's the only thing that's the difference is my body's telling me it's not. But anyway, but it was a rough year because I was actually dying. I didn't really know it. I was losing so much blood that, this is probably typical alcoholic, whenever I have something physical, I think it's me, I think, hey, what's wrong with you? Come on, snap out of it. You're having like an emotional day or something like that. And I could barely, I was really deathly sick. And so it was sort of a journey to even find out what was wrong. And of course there was surgery and all that kind of stuff. And there's also, I'm just starting to come to terms with it, even my own shame about being ill. I remember as a kid I had asthma, and there was like, hey, it's like snap out of it. And it's like, okay, you got an illness. It's like, how do I deal with an illness in sobriety? I thought it was indestructible. I remember when I turned 40 in sobriety, it was like, I never thought I'd live to be 40. And then I turned 50. You must be joking. It's like I had no vision of a life after 50. So that part sort of, the kind of the ability to sort of to push through uncomfortability sort of hit me in the face, in the sense that I couldn't just tough it out anymore. And then even my relationship, which also affected my relationship with work. But there was another thing with work too. I really believed that by working really hard, that this work that I do would actually give me something, would fill me in a certain way. And it really didn't. You know, it was good because I found out that I could do it. I was able to do things. The funny thing is also is the greed. It's like, I say, if only I can do this, you know, in my functioning or my work or anything like that. And then you do it and you go, oh, well, big fucking deal. You know, what about this? And, you know, maybe that's the gift also. But you know, work really became something that I said, wait a minute, here I'm giving my life, I'm working to the bone, and I don't know if it's really worth it anymore. Because first of all, my body is giving out, and I don't have the heart for it anymore. I don't have the sort of the idealism for it. So this is like, so here I am, 25 years sober, and it's a new journey. There was, and I want to talk about something else too, which is very, very, very important, I think, for me. And it's also why, when I started getting more into the traditions of what AA is and what it's not, I knew early on that if I listened to everything I heard in here, there's no way I could stay sober. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of beliefs, but their traditions are very simple. They don't have opinions on a lot of things. You know, this is, when I first came into AA, there was a little sign. It was in New York, and that's one of the reasons why I stayed, is because it had a little sign that said, live and let live. I had already been through the gulag of drug rehabs. You know, I'd been when I was 17. I was like, you know, and I worked my ass off there. You know, I was just like, and they told me, I remember they told me, if you do these certain things, then you can have this great life and do this stuff. Of course, all the staff ended up in jail, but, you know, it was like, and then they gave me drinking privileges too, which was great. You know, it was like, they said I was so damaged I can only drink beer and wine, because I had taken so much acid, and I was actually the least, that's one drug I should have never taken, acid. Because it's just like my mind just never shut down anyway. You know, it was like, so there was and I'm telling you also about some of the difficulties in the journey of sobriety. And because also when I first came into these rooms, and there was sort of this very pretty picture that was painted sometimes, I didn't believe it. You know, and not only did I not believe it, I didn't identify. I didn't say, there's no way I can have that kind of life. The person who 12-stepped me was someone who had suffered a great deal, and that's why I believed him, because he told me he had a few good hours in his first 5 years, you know, and I went like, you know, and the type of man that he was, I said, if I have to go through that, and I'm not having to go through that, but if I have to go through that to be who he is, it's worth it. If I have to go through a few good hours in my first 5 years, I'll do it. But it's funny, there was a speaker before Richard who was speaking that in here, you know, we don't care what people think. It's not really true. You know, we really do care what people think. It's in our nature. Hey, when I was shooting speed, I cared what people thought, and I thought the junkies were all a bunch of assholes. You know, when I was just drinking, you know, Southern Comfort, I thought the vodka drinkers and coke sniffers, they were jerks, and our gang was, you know, there's always this, no matter where I was, you know, it's like I always created kind of a, hey, we're cool, you suck. And it's the same, it's just kind of our nature. It's like not our nature, but it's maybe not the best part of our nature, but that's kind of what we do. We go to meetings, we want to look good. We don't, want people to think we're good, we're cool, we're whatever. But, there's that thing which, and one of the slogans which was great is you can't save your face and your ass at the same time. And it's not fucking possible. It's not possible. Gossip is deadly in AA. Deadly. People die. You don't hear the bodies, you don't hear the dead complain too much because they're dead. You don't, when people take somebody's inventory about whether or not they're, like I hear words now that I go, what the fuck does that mean? Sober behavior. What's sober behavior? Does anybody have a definition? Is there a definition of that in the big book? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's like, all I know is that, as, like when I got sober at 25, it's different than being sober at 51, and my journey is not the same as someone else's. It doesn't matter. None of us are going to get out of here without defects. The man who 12-stepped me, who was really the best man I met, he had to think for other men's wives, till the day he died. So, so what? Am I going to judge that? Am I going to go into like a self-righteousness thing where like, I'm better than him? I have found the way? I mean, come on. We're alcoholics. There's nothing uglier than a self-righteous alcoholic, sober alcoholic. It's even the worst. It's like, look, this is a man who, the fact that he was able to give me what he gave me and have the defects he had, to me is an act is really the grace. I know that my sobriety is through no doing of my own. It's through a grace. And that grace, I don't want to take credit for. And I don't want to like own it because it's really not mine. I was talking to a guy, showing me the bullet hole in his back. He was whatever in the street and he was drunk and stuff. It's like, what separates me from that guy who's just hoping to die in his sleep? Not much, really. It's a grace. Is my sober life better than his? I can't even judge that. This is a choice I've made. When I came back in 1980, I asked this guy who I admired, who's in One of Us, and I said, how do you do it, man? He says, I get on my knees every morning and I ask God to help me stay sober today. And I didn't know what even that meant, but that's what I did. And it's just something, and I don't even know where the willingness to be sober came from, or the desire for sobriety. The guy also speaking before Richard was talking about the desire for sobriety. That's also a grace. Because I remember when I would come into the rooms and I would look at the second step. Because the first step didn't mean that much to me, but the second step was like, a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I felt like I was hanging by a wire, and that wire was about to snap. Doctors tried experiments on me. I mean, whatever. I was not. It was not. And the beauty of that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity was that I was never asked to believe anything. There was no magic. There was no like, I was never asked to embrace a system of beliefs in here. What I did see was the attraction of who these people around me were. These are people who were where I was, some of them worse, some of them not as bad, but I knew that they had been where I had been, and I knew they knew my story. So, and as insane as they were, I saw that these people were some of the sanest people I'd ever met. That what they said and what they did and what they felt, there was kind of like a connection between the three, which is like I had never experienced before. Usually I said one thing, did another, felt something else. It was like, and a feeling, forget it. Feelings for me were just, I didn't even know what a feeling was. So So I guess the gist of I was thinking about this is a new year. This is the end of things, beginning of things. It's really what is the traditions in AA are really what kept me here. There were groups that came before AA, and they didn't survive. There were the Washingtonians, there was the Oxford group. And the mindfulness of how these traditions were, they didn't just kind of appear. There was a lot of mindfulness that came into these. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Hey, that's a pretty profound idea. And just to end with this one thing, for me, AA is very, the principles and the traditions are very revolutionary in a way. They're not, I think I got sober out of resentment sometimes because, when I was drunk, I could hang out in situations I didn't really want to be in. And sober, it's like I would get pissed off a lot easier. So it's basically what the traditions and the steps are taking me through is in a way the opposite of what the world is selling me. I'm told if I buy this, I'll be somebody better, or if I embrace this idea, I will be whole again. But AA is the steps in AA. They take me to something that basically telling me this is not really the truth. The truth is an inner journey. It's a spiritual journey, and it's not about what I get. Anyway, I'll end with that. And here we go. Thanks very much.